Haley had been seeing Andrei Belkin for 3 weeks when she learned what it really meant to belong to a man like him. 3 weeks of expensive dinners and intimate conversations. 3 weeks of feeling like she'd stepped into a world that existed in the shadows of the city she thought she knew. 3 weeks of falling dangerously, irrevocably in love with a man whose last name made people nervous. She was leaving her shift at the gallery in Chelsea on a Tuesday evening, autumn wind cutting through the streets when it happened. Her phone was in her hand, illuminating Andrei's last text. "On my way. Wait inside." But she was already outside, had been eager to see him, too impatient to wait in the warm lobby like he'd asked. The man approached from her blind side. Young, maybe mid-20s, wearing a hoodie that had seen better days. His eyes were on her phone, the newest model, expensive, obviously worth something. She saw him coming too late, felt his hand close around her wrist. "Let go of the phone." His voice was rough, desperate, not a professional thief, someone who needed money fast and saw an easy target. "Get off me." Haley tried to pull away, but his grip tightened, his other hand reaching for the device. That's when she heard the car door slam, when she felt the air change. When the man's face went from determined to terrified in the space of a heartbeat, Andrei moved like violence personified. One moment he was emerging from the black SUV that had just pulled up. The next, he had the man's wrist in his hand, bending it at an angle that made the thief cry out and release Haley instantly. The phone clattered to the sidewalk, forgotten. "You touched her." Andrei's voice was arctic, lethal, nothing like the warm tone he used with her. This was the voice that ran an empire, the voice that made grown men confess to things they'd never done just to make it stop. "You put your hands on what's mine." "I didn't know, man, I swear I didn't know." The thief was babbling, his face white with terror because he understood now. The expensive suit, the security detail materializing from nowhere, the way people on the street were suddenly very interested in being somewhere else. Haley's heart hammered. She'd seen Andrei commanding, seen him cold during business calls, but this was different. This was the predator she'd only glimpsed in shadows, and it should have scared her. It did scare her, but it also ignited something else entirely. "Andrei." She touched his arm, felt the coiled violence beneath his jacket. "Let him go." He didn't look at her, didn't move. His grip on the man's wrist stayed iron tight. "He touched you, and you're scaring him, let him go. He should be scared." "Please." She moved closer, her hand sliding down to his, the one crushing the thief's wrist. "Please." Something in her voice reached him. The temperature in his eyes shifted from Arctic to merely winter cold. He released the man with a shove that sent him stumbling backward. "Run," Andrei said quietly, "and pray I never see you again, because next time she won't be here to stop me." The thief ran. Actually ran, disappearing into the early evening crowd like his life depended on it. Which Haley realized with a chill it probably had. Andrei bent down, picked up her phone, and checked it for damage before handing it to her. His fingers were gentle when they touched hers, such a contrast to the brutality of moments before. "Are you hurt?" "No, I'm fine." But she wasn't fine. Her hands were shaking, her pulse was racing, and she couldn't stop staring at him, this man who could switch from lethal to tender in a heartbeat. That was necessary. He cupped her face, thumbs stroking her cheeks, checking for himself that she was unharmed. "He put his hands on you, on what belongs to me. There are consequences for that." "I'm not property, Andrei. No." His eyes held hers, intense and unwavering. "You're so much more than that. You're mine, and I protect what's mine. Always." She should have bristled at the possessiveness, should have been offended by the implication of ownership. But standing there with his hands on her face, with the ghost of violence still hanging in the air, all she felt was safe. Claimed. His. "Take me home," she said, and watched his eyes darken with understanding. "Your place or mine?" "Yours." Because his penthouse in Tribeca had become more home than her tiny Brooklyn apartment ever was. He guided her into the SUV with a hand at the small of her back, that proprietary touch that now made perfect sense. His driver, Dimitri, knew better than to comment on what had just happened, but she saw his slight nod of approval in the rearview mirror. The drive to Tribeca was silent. Andrei's hand found hers, his thumb tracing circles on her palm, a gesture so at odds with what she just witnessed that it made her dizzy. This man who could terrify with a look was touching her like she was something precious, something worth protecting with violence if necessary. They'd been dating for 3 weeks. 3 weeks since their first meeting that had been nothing like what just happened. 3 weeks since she'd made the mistake of accepting his dinner invitation and discovering that falling for a dangerous man was the easiest thing she'd ever done. It started 6 weeks ago at a charity gala. Simone had dragged her to the Metropolitan Museum, insisting she needed to network. Haley had gone reluctantly, uncomfortable in a borrowed dress, when she saw him. Andrei Belkin, holding court near a Baroque painting, commanding the room with his presence, the scar on his jaw, the way people deferred to him, storm-gray eyes that found hers across the crowd. He'd crossed to her with absolute confidence. "You've been watching me. You're hard to miss. So are you." His smile transformed his face. "Andrei Belkin, have dinner with me." She should have said no, should have recognized danger. But she'd said yes, and that yes led to 3 weeks of the most intense relationship of her life. Learning he was ruthless and generous, dangerous and gentle, that he read Dostoevsky and built schools and made her feel cherished. 3 weeks of falling for a man she knew was dangerous. Tonight had shown her exactly how dangerous. The penthouse was dark when they entered, the floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Manhattan's glittering skyline. Andrei shed his jacket, rolled up his sleeves, and poured them both vodka, expensive Russian vodka that went down smooth and warm. "You're angry with me," he said, handing her a glass. "I'm processing." She took a sip, felt the burn. That man was terrified, Andrei, absolutely terrified. "Good, that doesn't bother you. He put his hands on you, on my woman, in my city." He moved closer, crowding her space in a way that should have felt threatening but somehow didn't. "What bothers me is that you were outside alone, that I wasn't there sooner, that for even a moment you were in danger. I can take care of myself. I know you can." His hand came up to her face again, that gesture of checking, reassuring himself. "But you shouldn't have to, not when you're with me. The moment you became mine, you became protected. That's not negotiable." "Yours," she said the word slowly, tasting it. "You keep saying that. Because it's true. No apology. No uncertainty. You're mine, Haley, and I'm yours. That's what this is. What we are." She should have pushed back, should have asserted her independence. But standing there with his hand on her face and his eyes burning into hers, all she wanted was to surrender to the truth of it. She was his. Had been since that first dinner when he'd looked at her like she was the only woman in a crowded restaurant, when he'd asked about her dreams and actually listened. When he'd kissed her goodnight with a restraint that had made her ache for more. "I'm yours," she agreed softly and watched his control slip. He kissed her then, not gentle, not restrained. Kissed her like he'd wanted to since the moment that thief touched her. Kissed her like he needed to reclaim her, remind them both that she was safe, that she was his, that nothing would hurt her while he breathed. She kissed him back with equal intensity, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him. This was what she'd chosen. This complicated, dangerous man who protected what he loved with a ferocity that should terrify her. This life that existed in shadows and power plays. This love that felt like falling and flying at the same time. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. His forehead rested against hers, his hands gentle now where they cradled her face. "Stay," he said. "Stay tonight, stay always. I have work tomorrow. Call in sick." That word again, the one he used so rarely it felt like a gift. "I need you here, need to know you're safe, need." He trailed off, but she understood. Tonight had shaken him too, the thought of what could have happened. "Okay," she agreed. "I'll stay." Relief flooded his features. He pulled her close, just holding her, and she felt his heart hammering against her cheek. This powerful man who just terrified a would-be thief was holding her like she might disappear. They moved to the bedroom, that space that had become intimately familiar over 3 weeks. The bed that was too big for one person but perfect for two. The view of the Hudson that she'd watched dawn break over more mornings than she'd planned. The drawer that now held her things, marking her territory in his space just as surely as he'd marked his claim on her. He undressed her slowly, reverently, like he was unwrapping something precious. Checked her wrist where the thief had grabbed her, his expression darkening at the faint red marks already forming. "He hurt you. Barely, it's nothing. It's not nothing." He pressed a kiss to the mark, so gentle it made her throat tight. "I should have hurt him worse. Andrei, I know you stopped me. You're better than me, Haley, softer, kinder. It's one of the things I love about you." He looked up at her, vulnerability naked in his eyes. "But don't ask me to not. Don't ask me to let anyone hurt what's mine without consequences. I can't, it's not in my nature." "I won't." She pulled him up to her, kissed him softly. "But promise me you'll let me temper that nature sometimes. Let me be your conscience when yours is too brutal." "Deal." He smiled against her lips. "My beautiful conscience, my light in all this darkness." They made love that night with an intensity born from fear and relief and the absolute certainty that they belonged. After, she lay in his arms, tracing the scars on his chest that told stories he'd only partially shared. Battle wounds from a life she was still learning about. "Tell me how we got here," she said softly. "Tell me the real story." So he did. He told her about growing up in Moscow, about coming to America at 17 with nothing but ambition and anger, about falling into the Bratva because it was the only family that would have him, about rising through ranks through intelligence and ruthlessness, about becoming a leader before he was 30 because he understood that power wasn't about violence, it was about control. He told her about the businesses he ran, legitimate and otherwise, about the neighborhoods he protected because someone had to, and corrupt police wouldn't, about walking a line between criminal and businessman so thin he sometimes didn't know which side he stood on, about being lonely at the top until a woman in a borrowed dress had looked at him across a crowded gala like he was just a man, not a monster. "I saw you that night," he said, "and I knew you were different, knew you were dangerous to everything I'd built, knew I'd want you anyway." His hand stroked her hair, rhythmic and soothing. "I should have stayed away, let you live your safe, normal life, but I'm not that selfless. I wanted you, so I took you, and now I don't want you to let me go." She tilted her head to look at him. "I'm not stupid, Andre. I know what you are, what you do. I've Googled you. I've read the rumors. I've seen enough in 3 weeks to know it's not exaggerated. And yet you're still here. And yet I'm still here." She pressed a kiss over his heart. "Because I've also seen the man who reads Dostoevsky and collects art, who builds schools in neighborhoods everyone else forgot, who looks at me like I'm his whole world. You are my whole world. Then let me in completely, no more half-truths, no more protection from reality. If I'm yours, if we're really doing this, then I need to know everything. I need to understand the world I'm choosing." He was quiet for a long moment, his hand still moving through her hair. Finally, he nodded. "Okay, but once you know, you can't unknow it. Once you're really in, Haley, you're in. There's no going back to. I don't want normal, I want you, all of you. Then you'll have me." He kissed her forehead. "And God help us both." The next morning, over coffee and sunrise, he told her everything. Territory and tribute. Protection operations that actually protected. The imports that weren't always legal. The violence that sometimes happened. The blood he couldn't wash clean. His position as Bratva captain controlling half of Manhattan. The enemies who'd use her to hurt him. "That's why I reacted the way I did," he said. "You're my vulnerability now, the thing that could break me. So what do we do? You learn, you train, you let me protect you while getting smart about protecting yourself." He took her hand. "And you decide if this is really what you want, because once people know about us, you become part of my world. There will be danger, your normal life ends." She thought about her tiny apartment, her struggling finances, her safe. Then she looked at this man who'd turned her world upside down in 3 weeks. "I choose this. I choose you. Teach me to survive in your world because I'm not going anywhere." Relief flooded his face. "Then we do this right. You move in here, take self-defense training, learn to shoot, understand the players and politics, and never go anywhere without telling me or my people." That sounds controlling. "It's survival. I won't let my enemies use you against me." She'd agree. Not from submission, but understanding. She'd chosen a dangerous man, better to be prepared than naive. 3 weeks passed, her life transformed. She moved into the penthouse officially. He surprised her by turning a room into an art studio with perfect northern light. She trained with Dmitri, discovering strength she hadn't known. She met his inner circle, earning their respect by refusing intimidation. She kept her gallery job against his wishes. Their first real fight. He didn't understand why she'd work when he could give her everything. She'd explained it was about identity, not money, about being more than just his woman. He relented but insisted on security. Marcus now dropped her off and picked her up daily. A compromise, like everything in their relationship. The incident with her phone was the first time his world touched hers in violence. She'd been preparing through training, but theory and practice differed. Seeing him like that, seeing his capacity for violence was visceral, terrifying, thrilling. Now, the morning after, she finally understood herself. She wasn't scared of his darkness. She was drawn to it. She recognized in him what she felt in herself. The capacity for intensity, for choosing extraordinary over safe. "You're thinking too loud," Andre mumbled, his arm tightening around her waist. "Just processing." "Regretting?" "No." She turned in his arms to face him. "Actually, I think I'm finally understanding what we are, what this is." "And what is it?" "Inevitable." She kissed him softly. "We're inevitable, Andre Belkin, you and me, this life, all of it. I think it's been inevitable since that first night at the gala." He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his face. "I told you that first night, there's nothing just about you, Haley. You were always going to turn my world upside down." "Good." She settled back again. Because you've done the same to mine, seems only fair. They stayed in bed until the city fully woke below them, until duty and responsibility called them back to their separate but intertwined lives, until she had to go to the gallery and he had to attend to business she didn't ask about anymore, but before she left he caught her hand. "About last night," he said. "I meant what I said, you're mine, and I'll protect what's mine with everything I have, always." "I know," she squeaked. "And I'm glad, but Andre, I'm not just yours to protect, I'm yours to stand beside, remember that." "I will." He pulled her down for one more kiss. "My fierce, stubborn love, I'll remember." She left for work feeling like something had shifted, like they'd crossed an invisible line last night. She was no longer just dating Andre Belkin. She was his, and he was hers, and whatever came next, they'd face it together. The real test came 2 weeks later. Victor Belkin showed up at the gallery on a Thursday afternoon. Haley was cataloging new acquisitions in the back room when Marcus appeared in the doorway, his expression tense. That alone was enough to make her stomach drop. Marcus never looked tense. "Someone here to see you," he said quietly. "Claims he's family of Mr. Belkin." Her heart rate spiked. Andre had mentioned Victor exactly once and only in passing. His cousin, the one who thought he should have inherited when their uncle. The one who'd been making noise, causing problems, testing boundaries. Andre had been handling it, he'd said, keeping Victor contained while avoiding outright war. Apparently, Victor was done being contained. She found him in the main gallery, standing in front of a Baroque painting, looking so much like Andre it was disturbing. Same bone structure, same height, same predatory grace. But where Andre's eyes held controlled intensity, Victor's held chaos barely leashed. "Haley," he said, turning to her with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I've heard so much about you. I'm sorry, do I know you? Not yet, but I know my cousin, and I know he's gotten soft since he started fucking you." Marcus moved closer, but Haley held up a hand. The gallery was full of patrons. This needed to stay civil. "You should leave." "Should I?" Victor moved closer, invading her space deliberately. "But I came all this way to meet the woman who's..." "What he is, you must be very special." "I mean it. Leave, or I'll have security escort you out." "Security?" He laughed, glancing at Marcus. "You mean Andre's dog? He follows you everywhere, doesn't he? Because my cousin knows what you are, a weakness, a liability, something his enemies can use." "And are you his enemy, Victor?" "I'm family." But the way he said it made it sound like a threat. "Which means I'm trying to help him see reason. You're going to get him killed." "Make him vulnerable. Maybe you already have." Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. Andre's name lit up the screen. Victor noticed, his smile widening. "Answer it. Let's see how fast he comes running." She declined the call, meeting Victor's eyes steadily. "You've delivered your message. Now leave my place of work." "Or what? You'll tell Andre you'll make him choose between family and his pretty little pet." He leaned in, voice dropping. "Here's the thing about men like us. You don't keep pets for long. Eventually we remember what we are. Predators, and predators don't stay domesticated. Get out." Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking, not with fear, with rage. Victor straightened, adjusting his jacket. "I'll go, but think about what I said. Think about what staying with him costs. Not just you, but him, because the enemy's circling, they're watching you, learning your schedule, your routines. And when they make their move, Andre will have his empire or his woman, and I think we both know which one he'll pick when it matters." He left, and Haley's phone immediately buzzed again. "Andre," she answered this time. "Why didn't you answer?" No hello, just concern edged with fear. "I had a visitor." Silence, then Victor. "How did you know?" "Because Marcus called me the second he walked in. I'm 5 minutes away, don't move." He was there in 4. Stormed into the gallery with Dimitri and 3 other men, his face a mask of controlled fury. He pulled her into a private office, checked her over like he was looking for injuries, his hands shaking slightly. "Did he touch you?" "No, he just talked." "What did he say?" She told him everything, watching his expression grow colder with each word. When she finished, he pulled out his phone and made a call in rapid Russian. She caught enough to understand, calling in favors. Whatever Victor had done by coming here, it had consequences. "This is my fault," Andre said after he hung up. "I should have dealt with him sooner, should have made it clear that you're off limits. He called me your weakness." "You are," no hesitation. "My greatest weakness, and if he knows it, others do too." "So what do we do?" He looked at her for a long moment, and she saw the war in his eyes, the part of him that wanted to send her away, keep her safe by ending this. The part that couldn't bear to let her go. "We go to war," he said finally. "Victor crossed a line today, coming to your work, threatening you. He forced my hand." "Andre, no." He cupped her face, thumbs stroking her cheeks. "He made this choice, not me, not you, him, and now he has to live with the consequences." What she didn't know was that Victor had anticipated this, had wanted this. because war meant chaos and chaos meant opportunity for someone smart. Desperate enough, the attack came 3 days later. Haley was leaving a late meeting at the gallery, Marcus walking her to the car as always. She saw the black sedan too late, saw it jump the curb, felt Marcus shove her hard, sending her sprawling behind a parked car, heard the gunshots that followed, sharp and impossibly loud in the Manhattan evening. Then Marcus was on top of her, shielding her with his body, his gun drawn and returning fire. It lasted maybe 20 seconds. Felt like forever. When it ended, the sedan was gone, tires screaming, and Marcus was bleeding from his shoulder, his face pale but determined. "You okay?" he gasped. "You're shot." Vest caught most of it, shoulders just grazed. He was already pulling her up, dragging her toward their car. Other security materialized from nowhere. Someone was calling for medical. Someone else was already on the phone with Andre. They took her to the Westchester house, the safe house she'd heard about but never seen. It was a fortress disguised as a suburban mansion. High walls, security cameras everywhere, men with weapons who nodded respectfully as she was ushered inside. Andre was already there, waiting in the foyer. He looked like death. Pale, shaking, barely controlled violence radiating off him. The moment he saw her, he pulled her into his arms so hard it hurt. Didn't speak. Just held her while his body trembled against hers. "I'm okay," she whispered. "Andre, I'm okay." "You almost weren't." His voice was wrecked. "Marcus said they weren't trying to scare you, they were trying to kill you. But they didn't. Marcus saved me. Marcus is in surgery." He pulled back, hands framing her face, eyes wild. "You understand what this means. Victor isn't playing games anymore. He's trying to eliminate you. Eliminate my weakness so he can move. Then we eliminate him first." "Haley, no." She grabbed his wrists, held his gaze. "No more half measures, no more trying to avoid war. He tried to kill me, Andre, me, and he almost killed Marcus, so we end this, whatever that takes." He searched her face, looking for fear, finding only rage and determination. "This is what you want, to go to war. This is what I'm choosing. He doesn't get to win by scaring me. He doesn't get to take you from me So yes, war, whatever it takes to end this." Something shifted in his expression. Pride, relief, and underneath it all, love so intense it took her breath away. "Okay," he said. "Then we do this together. But you don't leave this house without an army. You don't take a breath without me knowing where you are. Agreed?" Agreed. What followed was a week of controlled chaos. Andre mobilized his entire organization, called in every favor, made alliances with families. Victor had broken the biggest rule in their world. You didn't target civilians. You didn't try to kill someone's woman to get to them. That kind of disrespect demanded response. Haley stayed at the Westchester house, surrounded by security, learning more about Andre's world in 1 week than she had in the previous 2 months. She met the men who ran his operations, listened to strategy sessions conducted in English and Russian, watched Andre transform from her tender lover into the ruthless Bratva captain who'd built an empire through intelligence and controlled violence. It was terrifying, it was fascinating, and it confirmed everything she'd chosen. This was real. This was who he was, and she loved him anyway, because of it, despite it, all of it. Marcus recovered from surgery and insisted on returning to duty. When Haley tried to thank him for saving her life, he just shrugged. "You're the bosses. That makes you family. We protect family." That's when she understood. She wasn't just Andre's girlfriend anymore. She was part of something bigger, part of a world that had its own rules, its own honor, its own code. And that code said she was under protection, untouchable, which is exactly why Victor's attack had been so offensive. The end came on a Friday night. Victor had been holed up in a restaurant he owned in Brooklyn, surrounded by his own men. But someone on his team had provided floor plans and security schedules. Someone wanted out of Victor's sinking ship badly enough to betray him. Andre didn't tell her the details, didn't want her implicated if something went wrong. But when he left that night, dressed in black, his face carved from stone, she knew. This was it. The end of the war, one way or another. She waited in the Westchester house, pacing like a caged animal. Dmitri stayed with her, his presence both comforting and reminder that Andre was in danger, that this could go wrong, that she could lose him. "He'll be okay," Dmitri said quietly, watching her wear a path in the carpet. "He's smart, careful, he won't take unnecessary risks. He's attacking his own cousin. His cousin tried to kill you, made it war. This is how war ends in our world. With more violence. Sometimes," Dmitri's expression was understanding. "I know this is knowing what he is, what he does. But he's also the man who reads to you at night, who looks at you like you hung the stars. Those things coexist in him. You have to accept both or accept neither." "I accept both," she said firmly. I just want him to come home." He did, 3 hours later, walked through the door looking exhausted but unharmed. The moment he saw her, his shoulders dropped, the tension bleeding out of him. She ran to him, threw herself into his arms, felt them close around her like a vice. "It's done," he murmured into her hair. "Victor's in federal custody, arrested on racketeering charges. Charges that will stick because we made sure of it. Evidence, witnesses, all clean, all legal. He's going away for 20 years minimum." "You didn't kill him," he pulled back to look at her. "No, though I wanted to. God, I wanted to, but I remembered what you said. About you tempering my brutality, so I found another way, a way that removes the threat without making me a murderer in your eyes. In my eyes, you could never be a monster." She cupped his face. "But thank you for finding another way. I didn't do it for me, I did it for you, for us, for the future we're building." He kissed her softly. "It's over, Haley, really over. Victor's done, his supporters have scattered, we have peace. For how long? Long enough." He smiled, tired. "Long enough to live, to breathe, to be more than just survival." They went back to Tribeca the next day, back to the penthouse that had become home, back to their life of art galleries and business meetings, of normal moments stolen between the extraordinary. Marcus returned to driving her to work, his shoulder healing well. The gallery opened a new exhibition she'd curated, and Andre attended with pride in his eyes. Life settled into a rhythm. Not normal, never normal. A rhythm built on truth and trust and the understanding that loving each other meant accepting the totality of who they were. 3 months after Victor's arrest, Andre took her to dinner at the restaurant where they'd had their first date. The same table, the same wine, but everything else was different. They were different, stronger, more certain. Over dessert, he took her hand. "I have something to ask you." "Okay. I know we haven't been together long by most standards. 6 months. Half a year, but it feels like a lifetime, like I can't remember who I was before you." He paused, and she saw vulnerability in his eyes that made her breath catch. "I want forever, Haley. I want to build a life with you, a real life, not just stolen moments between crises. I want to wake up next to you for the rest of my days. I want your dreams to be my dreams, your future to be my future, and I know my world is complicated. I know loving me means danger and complications and a life that will never be simple, but I'm asking anyway. Will you marry me?" Her heart stopped, then raced. She looked at him, this dangerous, complicated, beautiful man who'd turned her world upside down, who protected her fiercely, who'd found a way to end a war without losing his soul, who read to her at night and held her like she was precious. "Yes," she said, and watched joy transform his face. "Yes. I'll build a life with you. I'll take the complications and the danger and the beautiful moments between. I choose you, Andre Belkin, all of you, forever." He slipped a ring onto her finger. Emerald surrounded by diamonds, green like life and growth surrounded by strength. Perfect, like them, like what they'd built together. They left the restaurant engaged, stepping out into a Manhattan night that felt full of possibility, his hand in hers. His security details surrounding them but no longer feeling suffocating. Just protective, just family. "I love you," he said, stopping her on the sidewalk to kiss her properly. "My brave, stubborn, impossible woman. Thank you for staying, for choosing this, for choosing me." "I love you too," she said against his lips. "My dangerous, complicated, wonderful man, thank you for being worth it." They went home to their penthouse, to their bed, to their life. And Haley thought about that moment 6 months ago when a thief had tried to take her phone and Andre had shown her exactly who he was. How that moment of violence had been the beginning of the most important relationship of her life. She'd learned so much since then. About Andre's world. About her own strength. About the kind of love that doesn't make you weak but makes you fierce. About choosing danger over safety when danger comes wrapped in protection and devotion. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be more challenges, more complications, more moments when his world touched hers in ways that frightened or tested her, but they'd face them together. Partners, equals, two people who'd found something extraordinary in the spaces between light and dark. 6 months later, they married at the Westchester house. Small ceremony, Haley in white, Andre with tears in his eyes, Dimitri as best man. Simone as maid of honor, still terrified of Andre but accepting her best friend's happiness. They honeymooned in Italy, visited galleries, ate incredible food, made love overlooking the Mediterranean, talked about children someday when the world was safer, about the gallery Andre was helping her open, about growing old together. Back in New York, Haley felt she'd finally come home, not to a place but to a person, to a life she'd chosen with open eyes and full heart. The danger was still there, would always be there, but so was the love, the protection, the partnership, the certainty that whatever came, they'd face it together. And that, she thought, standing in their penthouse watching the city was enough. More than enough. That was everything. Hey, loves, thanks for sticking with me through Haley and Andre's story. I know it's intense, right? That moment when someone tries to take what's his and you see exactly what kind of man he really is. Not gentle, not safe, but absolutely devoted. I wanted to write something real for you. Not the fantasy where the dangerous guy's secretly soft, but the truth about loving someone who lives in a world most of us only see in movies. Haley could have run after that first night, after seeing Andre threaten that thief. Most people would have, but she chose to stay and learn and grow into someone who could stand beside him, not behind him. What did you think? Was Andre too possessive? Was Haley brave or reckless? Would you have stayed or run? Drop a comment and tell me your thoughts. I read every single one, and I love hearing what you all think about these complicated love stories. And hey, if this story made your heart race, if you felt that tension and danger and desperate love, hit that like button and subscribe. I've got more stories like this coming, more dangerous men and strong women. More complicated relationships that'll make you question what you do for love. Until next time, my loves, choose bravely, love fiercely, and remember that sometimes the most dangerous choice is also the most worthwhile one. See you in the next story. The building in Tribeca looked even more imposing in person than it had that morning. All glass and steel and the kind of quiet that comes with serious money. She almost turned around 5 times. But she thought about the presentation, about the dream she'd been chasing since undergraduate, about how she was so close to something better. So she pressed the button for the penthouse. Yes! The voice through the intercom was female, accented, professional. I'm here to see. She realized she didn't even know his name. The man who gave me this address. Silence. Then, come up. The elevator required a key card that the doorman provided without question, his expression carefully neutral. It rose so smoothly she barely felt the movement, just the growing pressure in her chest as the floors ticked by, 42 stories. The doors opened directly into an apartment that wasn't an apartment. It was a statement, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson, art that she recognized from auction catalogs, furniture that looked sculptural. And Andre, standing by those windows in a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, looking at the city like he owned it. Maybe he did. He turned when she entered, and she watched surprise cross his face before he controlled it. You came. My laptop died. The words came out more defensive than she intended. I have a presentation due. So you need my help. I need to borrow a laptop for a few hours. He moved toward her, and she fought the urge to step back. He stopped close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and understated, mixed with whatever it was that made her pulse forget its regular rhythm. What's your name? Haley. Haley. He said it slowly, like he was learning the shape of it. I'm Andre. I know. She didn't say how she knew. How she'd spent an evening falling down a Google rabbit hole that taught her nothing concrete but suggested everything dangerous. Andre Belkin, real estate developer. Import-export, the business sites claimed. But the forums, the ones she probably shouldn't have been reading, they whispered other things. Bratva, Russian organized crime. A man who controlled territories and made people disappear. She should have been running. She was standing there letting him look at her like she was something he'd decided to acquire. My office, he said, gesturing toward a hallway. You can work there. The office was all dark wood and leather, dominated by a desk that probably cost more than her car. He set up a laptop for her, top of the line, and as she sat down to work, she felt him behind her. Not touching, but present, watching. You can go, she said, not turning around. I won't steal anything. I know you won't. But he didn't leave. Instead, he sat in one of the leather chairs, picked up a book, and read while she worked. It should have been distracting. But it was also oddly comfortable, this silence between them, broken only by her typing and the occasional turn of his page. 2 hours later, she finished, saved the file, closed the laptop. Thank you. You're welcome. He stood, moved closer, and she caught herself leaning in before she remembered herself. Have dinner with me. I can't. You can, you won't. She should have agreed with him, made an excuse, and left. Instead, she heard herself say, I don't date men. Then get to know me. I'm not sure that's wise. His smile was slight, barely there, but it changed his entire face. Made him look younger, less dangerous, though that was probably an illusion. Probably not. Have dinner with me anyway. She thought about saying no. Thought about all the reasons this was a terrible idea. Thought about the whispers on those forums and the way his security detail watched everything like they expected violence. But she also thought about the way he'd said her name and the comfortable silence and the fact that she was tired of being careful, tired of safe, tired of surviving instead of living. "One dinner," she said. "Somewhere public." "Somewhere public," he agreed, and his smile widened just a fraction. "Tonight. Tomorrow, I have class tonight." He walked her to the elevator, and as the doors closed between them, she saw something in his expression that made her breath catch. Possession. Intent. The look of a man who'd decided on something and always got what he wanted. She texted her best friend, Simone, from the subway. "Met someone, having dinner tomorrow. Might be a terrible idea." Simone's response was immediate. "Details. Now." But how could she explain this? How could she put into words the feeling of standing too close to fire? So she just wrote, Russian, dangerous. "We'll send you his info before dinner just in case." Just in case what? In case he turned out to be everything those forums suggested. In case this attraction that felt like standing on a fault line was actually the earthquake itself. The restaurant he chose was in the West Village, intimate and expensive, the kind of place where they knew him by name and nobody looked twice at the two men who sat at a nearby table and didn't order food. Security. Always security. She wore the black dress she'd bought for gallery openings, the one that made her feel elegant and powerful. His eyes, when he saw her, told her it was working. "You look beautiful," he said, and it wasn't a line. It was an observation stated like fact. "Thank you." She let him pull out her chair, trying to ignore how his hand brushed her shoulder as she sat. "You clean up well yourself." "I try." He was wearing navy tonight, no tie, looking relaxed in a way that was She'd learned enough about men like him to know nothing was accidental. They ordered wine she couldn't pronounce, food she'd only read about, and they talked, really talked. He asked about her work, her studies, her dreams of curating her own exhibitions someday. She asked about his business, and he answered with smooth evasions that told her everything and nothing. Import, export, real estate investments. All true, all incomplete. "You're not going to tell me what you really do," she said, halfway through her second glass of wine. "You already know what I really do." "Do I?" He leaned back, studying her. "You looked me up after that day. You read things, you're here anyway, so either you're very brave or you don't believe what you read or you don't care. Maybe all three. Which is most true?" She considered lying, considered playing it safe. But there was something about the way he looked at her, like he could see through deflection, that made her honest. "I don't know yet." "Fair enough." He reached across the table, his fingers finding hers. "I won't lie to you, Haley, about anything, but there are things I can't tell you, things you're safer not knowing. What if I want to know anyway? Then you're braver than you are wise." His thumb traced circles on her palm, and she felt it everywhere. "But I like that about you." The rest of dinner passed in a blur of conversation and laughter and loaded silences. He told her about growing up in Moscow, coming to America at 17 with nothing. She told him about her family in Georgia, about being the first to go to college, about student loans that felt like chains. They talked about art and books, and the way autumn in New York felt like possibility. They didn't talk about the danger. About the world he lived in that left scars on jaws and required armed men at dinner. But it hummed between them anyway, a frequency only they could hear. He drove her home himself, dismissing his driver with a gesture. The car was black and expensive, and so quiet inside she could hear her own heartbeat. When they pulled up to her building in Brooklyn, he looked at it for a long moment, probably comparing it to his Tribeca palace, probably seeing how different their worlds were. "I had a good time," she said, reaching for the door handle. His hand caught hers. "So did I." She should have said good night and gone inside. Instead, she turned and found him closer than she'd expected, close enough to see the flecks of blue in those gray eyes, close enough to feel the heat coming off his body, close enough to know this was a choice, a line, a point of no return. "Haley." Her name again, said like a question. "Yes," she answered, though she wasn't sure what she was agreeing to. He kissed her, slowly, deliberately, like he had all the time in the world and planned to use it, learning exactly how she tasted. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb stroking her cheek, and she melted into him with an inevitability that should have scared her. When he pulled back, they were both breathing hard. His forehead rested against hers, and she could feel him restraining himself. Could feel how much he wanted more and how he was choosing to wait. "Good night, Haley," he said finally, pulling away. "Good night, Andre." She made it to her apartment, closed the door, and slid down it until she was sitting on the floor. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Sleep well. Tomorrow." She saved his number, stared at the message, thought about all the reasons she should say no, typed yes anyway. The next week unfolded like a dream she was afraid to. He took her to gallery openings where the art was ambitious and the crowds were intimidating. He sent a new laptop to her apartment, top of the line, with a note that said, "I don't like the thought of you struggling." They had dinner in restaurants where other diners whispered and stared. They walked through Central Park at midnight, surrounded by his invisible security detail, talking about everything except what this was becoming. He never pushed, never asked for more than she offered. But the tension between them grew like a living thing, fed by every touch that lasted too long, every look that said too much. Her friend Simone cornered her after class one night. "You're falling for him." "I know. Haley, this is dangerous, not just emotionally, actually dangerous." "I know that too. And I can't seem to stop." She looked at her friend helplessly. "I should be scared, I am scared, but when I'm with him, I feel more alive than I've felt in years." "Is that crazy?" "Probably." Simone pulled her into a hug. "Just be careful, okay? Keep your eyes open." But keeping her eyes open meant seeing things she wasn't sure she wanted to acknowledge, like the way people moved when Andre entered a room, the deference, the fear, the respect that came from something darker than charm, like the phone calls he took in rapid Russian, his voice dropping to lethal quiet, like the night she saw bruises on his knuckles he didn't explain. She asked him about it the next day when he picked her up for lunch. "Your hands." He glanced down at the steering wheel at the fading marks. "Business. What kind of business requires that? The kind you don't want to know about. You said you wouldn't lie to me." "I'm not lying, I'm protecting you. What if I don't want to be protected?" He pulled the car over right there on Fifth Avenue and turned to face her. "You don't understand what you're asking." "Then help." "I can't." For the first time, she heard something like frustration in his voice. "My world. It's not safe, not clean. I've done things, Haley, things I'm not proud of, things I'd do again if I had to, and the people I deal with, they're worse if they knew about you." "They don't. Not yet. I've been careful, but careful doesn't last forever." He reached for her hand, his grip almost painful. "You should walk away right now before this goes further." "Is that what you want?" The word came out harsh, honest, but it's what's smart. She looked at him, this complicated, dangerous man who read Dostoevsky in his office while she worked and sent her thoughtful texts about art exhibitions and held her like she was something precious. "When have I ever done what's smart?" His laugh was rough, surprised. "You're going to ruin me." "Good." She leaned across the console and kissed him and felt his control slip just a fraction. His hand slid into her hair, the kiss deepening, becoming something that made the car feel too small and the city outside disappear. When they finally broke apart, his eyes were almost black. "Come home with me." "Yes." She'd expected opulence. She got intimacy. Yes, his bedroom was stunning, all those windows and that view, the bed that looked like it cost more than her yearly salary. But when he pulled her down onto it, when he kissed her like he was trying to memorize her, when he whispered her name in English and Russian and made her feel like the only woman in the world, it wasn't about wealth. It was about want, about need, about two people who'd found something neither expected and neither could resist. Afterward, she lay in his arms, her head on his chest, his fingers tracing patterns on her shoulder. "Tell me something true," she said. "I'm falling in love." His voice was quiet, almost uncertain. "I didn't plan to, I tried not to, but here we are." She turned to look at him, saw the vulnerability in his face. This man who commanded criminal empires was letting her see him scared. "Here we are," she echoed. "You should still leave." "I won't. You're stubborn. You like stubborn." "I do." He pulled her closer. "God help me, I do." She stayed that night and the next. By the end of the week, she had a drawer in his dresser and a toothbrush in his bathroom. They didn't discuss it. It just happened, natural as breathing, inevitable as the autumn turning to winter outside those windows. But paradise, she learned, never lasts. It was a Thursday when everything changed. She was at the gallery cataloging new acquisitions when her phone rang, an unknown number. She almost didn't answer. "Miss Haley," male voice, Russian accent but not Andre's. "I need to come to Lenox Hill Hospital, now." Her heart stopped. "What happened?" "Just come, room 432. The line went dead. She grabbed her coat, told David it was an emergency and ran. The subway took forever. The hospital was chaos. But when she reached room 432, she found Andre sitting up in bed, very much alive, talking on his phone in Russian while a doctor hovered nearby. He ended the call when he saw her. "You should..." "Are you kidding me?" She crossed to him, looking for injuries. There was a bandage on his side, visible when his shirt shifted. "What happened?" "Business disagreement." "You got shot." "Grazed." He caught her hand. "It's nothing." "It's not nothing." She was shaking, she realized, shaking with fear and anger and relief. "You could have died." "But I didn't. This time," she pulled her hand away. This is your life, isn't it? Getting shot is just Thursday. Haley, don't. Stepped back. I need air. She made it to the hallway before the tears came, before the reality of it hit her fully. This wasn't a game, this wasn't some exciting romance. This was real danger, real violence, and she'd walked into it with open eyes but a naive heart. She felt him before she saw him. He'd followed her out, moving too well for someone who'd just been shot. Go back to bed, she said, not turning around. Not until we talk. What is there to say? I should walk away. And are you going to walk away? She turned then, looked at him standing there in his hospital gown with a gunshot wound and worried eyes. I don't know. Fair enough. He moved closer. I told you my world was dangerous. I told you to leave, but I also told you I was falling in love with you. All of that is still true. Someone tried to kill you today. Someone tries most days. Today they got closer than usual. How can you say that so casually? Because it's my reality, has been for 20 years. I'm not going to lie and say it'll change. It won't. This is who I am, what I am. He cupped her face, thumbs wiping away her tears. But what I feel for you, that's real too, more real than anything else, so you have to decide, can you live with this with me? I don't know, she said again, helplessly. Then take time, figure it out, I'll be here. He kissed her forehead. Oh. She left the hospital and went home, called in sick to work the next day, sat in her apartment and tried to think clearly. But how could she think clearly when her heart was screaming at her to go back? When every time she closed her eyes she saw his face, heard his voice saying he loved her. Simone came over that night with wine and food and brutal honesty. He got shot. I know. This is what walking away is for, Haley. I know that too. But you're not going to, are you? She looked at her best friend, this woman who'd known her since college, who'd seen her through breakups and failures and every disappointment. He makes me feel alive, Simone, like I'm more than what I settled for, like I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be. Is that worth the danger? Only you can answer that. I'm terrified. You should be. Simone took her hand. But I know you're not built to play it safe. You never have been. So whatever you decide, I'm here, always. Haley went back to him 3 days later. He opened the door to his penthouse looking tired and worried and so relieved to see her that her breath caught. Hi, she said. Hi. He didn't move. I wasn't sure you'd come back. I wasn't either. She stepped inside and the door closed behind her with a finality that felt like fate. But here I am. Here you are. He pulled her close, careful of his injury. I can't promise you safety. I can't promise you easy. I know that too. But I can promise you honest and real, and I'll protect you with everything I have. I'm going to hold you to that. She looked up at him. I love you even though I shouldn't, even though this is terrifying, even though you got shot on a Thursday like it's routine. He laughed, the sound rough and genuine. I love you too, even though you're stubborn as hell and don't know when to run. We're a disaster, aren't we? Probably the best disaster I've ever been part of. They went inside and she stayed, not forever, but for that day and the next and the one after that, because love, she was learning, wasn't about safety. It was about choice. It was about knowing the risks and choosing the person anyway. It was about finding something real in a world built on illusions. 3 weeks later, she moved in officially. Her apartment was too far, she said. She was there most nights anyway. These were her excuses, but the truth was simpler. She couldn't imagine being anywhere else. Andrei's world slowly opened to her. She met his second-in-command, Dimitri, a man with kind eyes and a scar that bisected his eyebrow. She learned to read the subtle shifts in security presence that meant a meeting hadn't gone well. She discovered that Andrei gave more to charity than most people earned in a lifetime, building schools and funding programs in neighborhoods the city had forgotten. Complex, contradictory, hers, but the danger was real too. Car rides where they took different routes every time. Restaurants where she learned to sit with her back never to a door. The night someone threw a brick through a gallery window where she was working late, and she spent 3 hours in a safe room while Andrei dealt with it. This was the price of loving a man the world feared. It came to a head on a cold December night. She was at a gallery opening, one she'd helped curate, her first real professional success. Andrei was supposed to meet her there after a meeting. She was talking to a collector when she felt eyes on her. Not the usual observation of Andrei's security. Something else, something wrong. The man approaching was young, well-dressed, his smile friendly. Haley, right? I've heard so much about you. I'm sorry, do we know each other? Not yet, but I know Andrei, I'm Victor. He offered his hand and something in his eyes made her not want to take it. But they were in public, surrounded by people, so she did. His grip was too tight, lasting too long. He's a lucky man. But luck runs out, doesn't it? Before she could respond, before she could process the threat, Andre was there. He moved between them so fast she barely saw it, his hand on Victor's chest pushing him back with controlled violence. "Touch her again," Andre said, his voice arctic, "and they won't find enough of you to bury." "Easy, cousin." Victor smiled, but there was rage behind it. "I was just saying hello." "Cousin." Haley looked between them, seeing the family resemblance. Same bone structure, same ruthlessness in the eyes. "Didn't tell her about me." Victor's smile widened. "I'm hurt. We're family after all, same blood, same business, though I think Uncle left the wrong nephew in charge." Security appeared from nowhere. Dimitri flanked Victor, another man she recognized as Andre's driver blocked the exit. The gallery had gone silent, people pretending not to watch while absolutely watching. "Leave," Andre said. "Now." "I'm going." Victor adjusted his jacket, eyes sliding to Haley one more time. "But I'll see you both soon. Family dinner, maybe." He left surrounded by his own men, and Andre turned to her. "We're leaving." "Andre, I can't. This is my opening." "Now, Haley." She saw something in his face that made her comply. They left through a side exit into a waiting car, Dimitri driving while another car full of security followed. Andre made call after call in Russian, his voice clipped. "Explain," she said when he finally hung up. "Victor is my cousin. We grew up together, ran together. When my uncle died, leadership went to me. Victor thought it should have been him. He's been making moves, trying to undermine me, threatening people I care about. Tonight was a message." "What kind of message?" "That he knows about you, that you're a vulnerability." He pulled her close despite the seatbelt, desperate. "I should have kept you hidden, should have protected you better." "You can't hide me forever." "I can try." They went to a house she'd never seen, somewhere in Westchester, surrounded by property and security. Safe house, she realized. They were in a safe house because his cousin had threatened her at her own gallery opening. That night, lying in an unfamiliar bed in an unfamiliar house with guards outside the door, Haley faced the full reality of her choice. This was her life now, always looking over her shoulder, always being a target. Always being the weakness someone could exploit to hurt the man she loved. "We should end this," she said into the darkness. Andre's arm tightened around her. "Is that what you want?" "No, but it's what's smart. You said it yourself, I'm a vulnerability, and I don't know how to be with you without becoming a weapon someone can use against you. So you learn." He turned her to face him, his expression fierce in the dim light. "You learn to be careful. You learn to protect yourself. You take the training I'm going to insist you get. You let me keep you safe. I don't want to live in fear. Then live in anger, live in defiance, but don't leave me." His voice cracked. "Please don't leave me." She'd never heard him say please before, never heard him sound anything but certain. It broke something in her, that vulnerability, or maybe it built something, a determination to stay, to fight, to choose this complicated, dangerous love and make it work. Oh. But things change. I'm not going to be sheltered. I'm not going to hide. If I'm in this, I'm really in it. That means I learn, I train, I understand what's happening. No more protecting me from the truth. That's dangerous. I know, but I'm tired of being the damsel. If I'm going to survive in your world, I need to be strong enough to stand in it. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay, we'll do it your way." The next months were a crash course in a world she'd only glimpsed before. She learned to shoot, spending hours at a private range with a patient instructor who didn't ask questions. She learned basic self-defense from Dimitri, who treated her with respect and pushed her harder than she'd expected. She learned to read situations, to spot threats, to trust her instincts. And she learned about the business. The real business. The territory disputes and protection operations. The imported goods that weren't always legal. The political connections and police on payroll. The whole complex web that Andre navigated to stay on top. It was ugly sometimes. It challenged her ethics. But it was also more nuanced than she'd expected. More about keeping peace than creating chaos. More about protecting people in a neighborhood than exploiting them. She didn't agree with all of it. She told him when she didn't. They fought. They made up. They built something real on a foundation that was anything but conventional. Victor kept making moves, small things at first. A shipment that went missing. A client who mysteriously backed out of a deal. A fire at a warehouse that looked suspicious. Each time, Andre responded with measured force, trying to contain the situation without starting a war. But wars, Haley learned, sometimes start themselves. It was February when Victor made his real move. Haley was leaving a meeting with a potential donor for an exhibition she was planning when her phone rang. Andre's number, but not his voice. "Miss Haley." Dimitri sounded worried, which immediately terrified her because Dimitri never sounded worried. "We have a situation. I'm sending a car. Stay exactly where you are and wait for them." "What kind of situation?" Andre was ambushed leaving a meeting. He's alive, but Victor made a direct move. It's war now. A car arrived in minutes. 3 men she recognized bundling her inside with professional efficiency. They took her to the Westchester house again, but this time it was full of people. Men in suits with weapons. Women she vaguely recognized from Andre's world looking worried, and Andre himself pacing like a caged predator, blood on his shirt but moving fine. She ran to him. He caught her, pulled her close. I'm okay. "What happened?" Victor tried to kill. In front of witnesses. "He's broken every rule we have. The other families are furious, but that means he's desperate. Desperate men do desperate things." "Like what?" He pulled back to look at her. "Like come after you to hurt me, which is why you're staying here under guard until this is finished." "How long will that take?" "I don't know," he cupped her face. "But I won't let him touch you, I promise." She stayed at the house for 5 days. Each day more news, more moves. Victor's territory shrinking, his allies abandoning him. The war Andre hadn't wanted turning in his favor through patience and strategy rather than violence. On the 6th day, it ended. Dmitri found Victor trying to flee the city. There was a confrontation. Details were vague, but Victor ended up in police custody, arrested on charges that had nothing to do with the family business and everything to do with crimes he'd committed alone. Andre had been careful. Legal. Above board, at least on the surface. "It's over," Haley asked when he came to get her. "It's over." He looked exhausted. "Victor's going away for a long time, and the families have made it clear that anyone who tries something similar will face consequences. We have peace for now. For now. It's the best I can offer." She took his hand. "Then it's enough." They went home, not to Westchester, but to Tribeca, to his penthouse, to the place that had become theirs. He took a long shower, washing away the fear and tension. When she came out, she found him on the balcony, looking at the city with that same proprietary gaze she'd first noticed. She joined him, and he pulled her against his chest. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what? For pulling you into this, for the danger, for all of it." "I pulled myself in." She turned to face him. "I knew what you were, I chose you anyway, and I'd choose you again. Even knowing what it costs. Especially." She kissed him, soft and sure. "I love you, Andre Belkin, all of you, the good and the complicated and the dangerous. You're mine and I'm yours, and that's enough." He kissed her back, and it felt like a promise, like a beginning instead of an ending. Because this was their life now, beautiful and terrible, safe and dangerous, built on trust and love and the kind of partnership that could survive anything. The gallery exhibition she'd been planning opened in April. It was ambitious, showcasing emerging artists from immigrant communities, telling stories of survival and transformation. Andre came to the opening in a perfectly cut suit, his security detail surrounding him, but staying subtle. He looked at her work with pride in his eyes that made her glow. Later, after speeches and champagne and congratulations, they stood in front of a painting that had caught his attention. A woman standing at a crossroads, paths diverging in every direction, but her gaze fixed ahead with determination. "This is you," he said. "Is it? The woman who chose a dangerous path, who didn't run when she should have, who stood her ground and became stronger for it. Or maybe," she said, taking his hand, "it's just a painting." "No." He pulled her close. "It's you, my brave, stubborn, impossible love. Thank you for not running. Thank you for being worth staying for." They left the gallery together, walking into the spring night surrounded by invisible protection and very real love. It wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't safe. But it was theirs, built on truth and choice and the kind of courage it takes to love someone with your eyes wide open. And that, she thought as his hand squeezed hers, was better than any fantasy. "Hey, loves, thanks for sticking with me through Haley and Andre's story." I know it's intense, right? That moment when you realize love doesn't come with guarantees, that sometimes the scariest thing is choosing to stay when everything's telling you to run. I wanted to write something real for you. Not the sanitized version where the dangerous guy magically becomes safe, but the truth about loving someone complicated. About how strength isn't about avoiding fear, it's about facing it. Haley could have left, probably should have left by most people's logic, but she chose to stay and grow and become someone who could stand in that world. What did you think? Are you team, she should have run, or team, love is worth the risk? Drop a comment and let me know. Tell me which moment hit you hardest, or what you do in her situation. I read every single one, and I love hearing what you all think. And if this story made you feel something, if you rode that emotional roller coaster with me, hit that like button and subscribe. I've got more stories like this coming, more characters who will make you question what you do for love, more journeys that'll make your heart race. Until next time, my loves, choose bravely, love fiercely, and remember that sometimes the most dangerous path leads to the most beautiful destination. See you in the next story.